His career is a masterclass in ability, resilience, and growth. He has traveled almost 60 countries for businesses. Mr. Abhay Maheshwari.
I was very fortunate to work, with across sectors, across geographies, across functions, and that has taught me very one simple thing. The complexity changes.
Across industries, functions, countries, and business models, and yet there's a very strong thread of leadership and execution running through all of it.
My approach would be data scenario based analytics, market study like what is the market pie, how much pie we have lost.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to FaceTime with Leaders, powered by Directors Institute World Council of Directors. I'm your host Taneol, and today's conversation is for anyone who wants to understand what real business leadership looks like when it's built across industries, across borders, and across decades. Our guest today is someone who hasn't just worked in business; he has built it, repaired it, scaled it, and led it through complexity. With over 35 years of global experience across plant operation, human resource, FMCG retail, vendor development, procurement, business development, sales and marketing, project management, and centralized production planning and industrial engineering, he brings the rare perspective of someone who understands both the boardroom and ground reality. From automobile, rigid PVC, bicycle, stationery, FMCG, OTC products, pharma, MS pipes, steels, chemical trading, fabrication, galvanizing, biomass, tea hygiene firms, international trade to board consultancy. His career is a masterclass in ability, resilience, and growth. He has traveled almost 60 countries for businesses across the world. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Abhay Maheshwari. Sir, it's truly a pleasure to have you with us today. How are you?
All good. Thanks, Tanya. So,
Lovely.
Tanya,
Yeah.
thank you very much. It's a truly pleasure to be here. When I look back to my, journey, it has been never about industry, as you have seen my, as you even given me in my introduction also. It has been about learning the businesses behave, how the businesses behave, how people respond under pressure, and how systems either support or break growth. Right. I was very fortunate to work, with across sectors, across geographies, across functions, and that has taught me very one simple thing. The complexity changes, but leadership fundamentals don't. Either be it be a steel business, be it a pharma business, fundamental doesn't change. So the clarity, discipline, and trust, these are the real drivers of the sustainable success. So I'm really looking forward to sharing a few of those learning today, and I will also give some, try to give some examples which may be related to business or not, but in general life, which can be related to the businesses.
Lovely, sir. So you've moved across industries, like we were just talking, across industries, functions, countries, and business models, and yet there's a very strong thread of leadership and execution running through all of it. Looking back at your 35-year, journey, what were the defining moments that taught you that leadership is not just about managing operations or chasing targets? It's about building systems, people, and trust that can survive change. And what would you say to leaders who still think long-term business building is only about numbers and not about relationships, discipline, and adaptability?
Uh, as I told you, in various, I've worked with various industries with function, but one of the most defining moment in my leadership journey came during, very early phase of my tenure with Wellspun Group. That was basically, my mid of the career almost. I was serving them as a senior general manager, central planning and contract management, and came from very small town Gwalior to Mumbai to join them. The department and the customer base, I'll start with the customer base was very unique. They are basically, top EPC companies of the world. So we were basically delivering our pipes to them. So On papers, everything looks strong when a project, you plan meticulously from the day one, the raw material, procurement, production, scheduling, and dispatch timelines. But all aligned with, anticipated risk and all the what else the contingency is there. We try to align, the team try to align that. But within a weeks of time, I realized that, reality unfolded to me that time that, you know, execution is where plans are tested and other basically disrupted, often sometimes disrupted basically. So what happened, despite of having capable team and, hardworking team and intent and efforts, the real challenge is not basically the planning. It was the alignment. Under pressure, how you align yourself, things keeps on changing. Maintaining transparency, managing evolving change, and keeping both internal and external stakeholders aligned. External stakeholder means the customers, and internal means, the all the departments, what so bringing them on a same table, aligned, calm, and focused, that was the true test. So then when I realized, I wanted to quote here first, I was very fortunate to, be direct interaction with Mr. BKG, Mr. RRM, Mr. BKM, promoters as well as the MD of the company during my that tenure. So every time, they used to emphasize one, two, three principles. One is customer centricity, second is transparency, third is delegation, and the fourth is the team development. So after this defining movement, the entire process and entire changes were, I fix it around all these four elements basically. So we strengthen our team involvement from reviews, reporting.
Yeah.
Uh, so Tanya, you will not believe, normally what happened, the order comes and you start production planning and scheduling. But in what we started change is that the time the marketing start bidding, we get used to involve that time itself. Because what happened for the EPC contractors, different country, different rules, different regulation, contract designing is different. So we start studying from the day one itself, so that if we won the contract, so things will be on aligned when we were basically executing it in reality. So, as I told you, around those four features, we structured the decision making, the timely documentation and communication, clear ownership and accountability. Most important is the trust within the team and with customers.
Yeah.
That is the most important thing. Even we used to do, team offsite meeting with customer for team building sometime when we start the project
Yeah.
along with the customer. So it, offline working, not exactly like, um, purely not business talks of, so that helps in building the team as well as understand each other, how we respond, how we work, so what is the behavior, what is the nature of each other. So that helps us.
And that is
So
the
the
core
one
of
lesson
everything.
that I carry forward from for here for the leaders, that, plan on paper provide directions, but trust, transparency, and disciplined execution creates sustainability. Numbers and processes tell the story, but it is the intent and the people who truly drive it. So, across industries, geographies, and roles, I've seen this truth remain constant. Environment evolve, but leadership functioning do not.
Yeah, and that makes a very good, solid core if these things are, taken into account and, taken care
True.
of. So, what makes your career especially fascinating is that you've led in both established organizations and entrepreneurial setups. You've started businesses, scaled networks, revived customer confidence, and stepped into complex leadership roles at critical moments. So, let me ask you this. When you step into a business that needs growth, whether it's a new venture, a legacy company, or business that has lost momentum, what is the first thing you look at to understand whether real growth is possible?
The first thing is not only numbers, It's analysis of those numbers. We collect a lot of data, but if we don't use it, it's a garbage. Data study and the entire ecosystem analysis or intent of the team or the entire group or the ecosystem is important. So that is the first thing I observe. I have a personally experience, run the companies that one time was a leader in their segment, and competition was far distant away. But due to lack of clarity from the promoters and short-term unstructured approach, brought them to the bottom of the table. So my approach would be data scenario-based analytics, market study, like what is the market pie, how much pie we have lost, what is the present pie of that out of that market, how the decision were made, do people know the rules here, SOP, work instruction, SLAs should be relevant. What happened nowadays, companies I've seen or experienced, 75% or 80% of the companies just copy paste SOPs, SLAs, work instructions from other industry, whether it is relevant to their industry or not. So they do that. So that doesn't work. It's basically, the tick mark for the audit, for the certification purposes. So basically the process has to be in the DNA of the entire team.
Yeah, very
Another
rightly
thing
said.
is there was any consistency in the execution, and the books, financial books. I come to the financial part. Is the normally clearly if somebody go through the books, it shows how the discipline was there, how the financials were maintained. So in my experience, basically all these years, growth is not blocked by lack of opportunity. It is blocked by the lack of structure, clarity, and intent from the leadership and promoters. I mean to say the top leadership as well as the promoters comes from the top to bottom. As I in the earlier question I told you about the Mr. BKG, Mr. RRM, and the BKM. It basically inculcated from the top. The team flow follows that basically, and if you keep on focusing on these elements, definitely success would be there. And the turnout of is only possible when the clarity of direction will be there. Clarity of direction means like short term, mid term, long term vision. All these visions are clear or not. The business plan is made or not. Consistency in decision or scenario based. Sometimes strategy change. For example, if you are, I'll give you a funny example. Like if you want to travel by a road, four friends are traveling by a road, and you have decided that today you will travel 700 kilometers and try to reach the destination, but and the Google is also saying that you will cover a day, but all of a sudden some either car breakdown.
Yeah.
So Tane, sometime happens, unexpected, some accident happens or the because of that traffic jam. So you have to immediately change your plan there. So either you have to, change a driver out of your four friends who can drive in the late night if you want to cover. So the expertise of the person is taken care there. Or you have to take a pause, stay somewhere and start to next morning. So such type of, whenever the hurdle comes, scenario based strategy has to be made. Ownership has to be at every level, be it a supervisor, manager, senior manager, at every level. Financial discipline has to be there from the top, because financial discipline normally, in industries, technical know how people are more. The financial section is little bit, not much involved in the business. So it has to be run from the top.
Yeah.
So if all these things exist, growth is possible. If not, growth become unstable no matter how good the market is.
Very rightly said. Sir, you've recently served in leadership roles in very relevant sectors, hygiene films and biomass fuels, both of which sit right at the intersection of industry demand, sustainability, manufacturing discipline, and future opportunity. So here's what I'm curious about. From where you sit today, what do you believe business leaders are still underestimating about the future of manufacturing and industrial growth in India?
I strongly believe that the leaders are underestimating the importance of discipline over opportunity. India has immense opportunity. That's not the question anymore. Be it domestic, be it export. The real question is, can we execute consistently at scale? People start business, but when it comes to the matter of scaling it, there, because systems are not there, industries get collapsed. If you see, out of 100% of the entire industry base in India, 20% or 25% are only growing, 80% are stagnant. Just because they have make the systems strengthen from the foundation level.
Yeah,
Growth without strong foundation, escalation is towards instability basically. Indian strength is it's well known, skilled manpower, ample of skilled manpower. The current GDP growth rate of 6 to 7%, we are already at the fourth position in the world, and around, I think, in 2026 we'll be touching around $4.5 trillion or something like that.
yeah,
So many leaders, what I feel, overestimate the execution speed but underestimate the depth of the preparation required. So, like, again, I'll give you the funny example. The Without seeing the Google map, you decide the travel time. So, what is the distance? You don't know, but this is the way leaders try to push their team without knowing the facts that what exactly the preparation time is required for doing anything.
yeah, yeah,
Chase we Leaders chase expansion and growth, but ignore process stability that sustain it basically. If you ignore, the process sustainability would be not there. They focus only, promoters especially focus on profitability, but ignore importance of the cash flow, working capital, lack of resource availability. So it's like, you want your kids to be engineer but don't want to get him admitted in engineering college. How will become engineer? So similarly, if you can't provide the resources to your team, how you can ask them to give possible to get the result from them? Most of the now the industry owners or the team, basically the top management, they basically start looking for a new technology, machines, equipments, but on other hand, they undervalue the power of the manpower, skilled manpower. You know, we try to save money over there,
yeah,
to be very honest. And what we see, like the people who were doing running earlier machine, they keep on running the new machines. It doesn't work like that. They have to be trained on the new technology.
yeah,
It's like, that in your kitchen you have given the latest equipment or OTG or microwave to your cook, but that cook is all the old guy who used to cook on a chula only. So you can't expect the good food. Ultimately, it's going to be waste.
yeah,
So similarly, if you don't provide the manpower to your leadership team, adequate manpower, talented manpower, skilled manpower to run, because you have invested in the machines, crores of rupees, millions of rupees you invest, and you try to save on the manpower. And another thing is, focus on optics of the customers. What we do, we ignore transparency with the customer. We basically, from the short-term gain of point of view, by compromising customers' requirements, so ultimately we destroy long-term value. So the real shift is required from reactive growth to structured growth. All these elements which I explained, it's basically a proper structured growth elements.
yeah.
So I am very confident that optimistic also, that India doesn't lack potential at all. It needs just alignment and discipline to unlock it fully.
100%. And that's where India can grow a lot more in the future.
True, true.
Yeah.
Nobody can beat us.
Yeah. So another thing that stands out in your journey is your ability to build from zero, whether it was setting up businesses, developing brands, creating distribution networks, or establishing functions that didn't exist in an organized way before. When you're building something from scratch, what are the first three things you focus on to make sure it doesn't just grow fast, but grows right?
For me, growing right means building something that doesn't collapse when pressure arrives.
Yeah.
So, like if the number capacity of a machine is 100 tons per hour, you try to push your team to make 120 tons. Ultimately, it's going to fail. So, three things I focus here basically prefer to focus the clarity of purpose and the roles. As I talked about the authority metrics, SOP, work instructions, SLAs, these all things fix accountability. Everyone should know what are we are building and what their role is. So the number one is clarity of the purpose. Number two, early discipline execution, including financial discipline. If you allow chaos from the beginning itself, it multiplies as you grow. It will never, it becomes very difficult to get, bring on track then. Then the third one is the transparency in the communication. When information flow clearly, decisions stay consistent. Decision making become easy. So I remember when I started FMCG super distribution venture in 1998. Within 6 months of a duration, after proper study of the markets, processes, and system by doing manually everything, within 6 months, tailor-made ERP and the customer-related transference processes were in place. So how you want to start? So the system, the clarity, purpose, processes, how important it is this. Whereas across the industry in FMCG super distributor, and that time the ERP was not at all there. Similarly, during my Kenya tenure, we have done almost market study for that particular product which we wanted to enter. Almost 60 days we have done complete study, and then we launched the product, which helped us to capture 20% of the market share within first year itself. So the purpose was very clear, approach was disciplined. So three things act as anchor, because when the foundation is strong, growth become predictable, risk reduces, and the organization doesn't depend on firefighting. So fast growth is always exciting. All top leaders, all promoters, they want growth fast, but right growth is sustainable.
So now let's loosen up a bit and have some quick fire fun, some quick questions and mostly yes or no answers. So are
Okay.
you ready?
Yeah, yeah.
Perfect. Is India entering its strongest era yet for industrial and manufacturing leadership?
Yes.
Can strong systems beat brilliant but inconsistent talent in the long run?
Yes, always.
Are relationships still a bigger competitive advantage than many people admit in business?
Absolutely.
Is sustainability now a business necessity rather than a branding conversation?
Yes, no longer optional even.
If you had to choose one, execution discipline or strategic vision, which matters more?
Execution discipline, because strategies fails without it.
What's tougher, building a new business or rebuilding trust in an existing one?
Rebuilding trust. It takes time and consistency.
So now let's talk about the side of leadership people admire from a distance but rarely understand up close, the pressure. Because growth looks great in hindsight, right? But in real time, it usually comes with uncertainty, resistance, complexity, and moments when one wrong decision can cost heavily. So, when a business faces serious pressure, whether it's customer distrust, operational underperformance, delayed execution, or market uncertainty, what does leadership need to do first to steady the organization and restore confidence?
So let me start with this. The pressure doesn't start where we see it. When things collapse, we see that the pressure is there. We have to go in deep. It start where clarity breaks. So the first thing is to do is establish a single version of truth. What happens whenever the pressures are there? As usual, typically the bugs pass on. One function will say because of that, another function will say that. So so everyone has to bring on a single version of a truth. So as you heard about, root cause analysis of any and YY analysis. So a lot of tools are there. So once the facts were there, single version of truth is there. Everyone must operate with the same facts. Involve all stakeholders. What happened normally, uh, if in entire organization, the important role is for every function, and any failure happen, or even in a sales and marketing, any failure in the sales also. So we need to involve all stakeholders, including customers sometimes. The customer feedback, because I had experienced personally when customers, whereas when the customer stake is much higher, you are supplying just a component to them, whereas their final product, or maybe the customer whosoever is buying your product, it's going to impact his future and his sales also. So ultimately, if you are transparent with them, then you can resolve any issues very fast. As per my experience, delayed execution can't be 100% avoided. There may be chances, but during that, how you communicate with the customer, how you communicate with your team, how you take everybody on board, then only the confidence get restored.
Yeah,
For example, recent SDFC case, nobody has thought of this will happen like this. Now the entire management, entire team is working on it together as a team.
true.
So when we have to, when we have to like look at the pressures, and to overcome those, we have to reset priorities,
Yeah,
clear clarify decision making, basically, as in decision making is important in everywhere, every factor. Bring predictability in the communication. So communication has to be very, very clear, transparent. Once confusion reduces, confidence start returning. In practice, stability comes back when people understand their roles again. Again, the people factor comes. We just cannot ignore the people factor in industry.
yeah,
Anywhere, not in industry, even in trading offices, even at home. So we cannot
true.
ignore the people factor. Decision making become timely and fair. Daily execution become consistent. So leadership under pressure is not about reacting fast. It is about bringing calm, structured changes
Yeah,
and action plan.
very true, sir. Sir, you've also been associated with Directors Institute World Council of Directors. From your personal journey as a business leader, what has being a part of Directors Institute meant to you, and how has that experience influenced the way you think about leadership, responsibility, and decision making at a broader level?
Being associated with the Director Institute has been very, very enriching experience for me. Uh, it's not only an institute, it's basically your friend. Now, I am after a 35 of year experience. I have certain ideologies, I have certain, principles. But as I told you, the as per the business, it keeps on, but certain principles remain same. And what we studied here and what we learned from here further strengthen my thought process about those principles. I got the opportunity to interact with the leaders across industries and the subject experts during training sessions or the lectures. That realizes me, challenges may differ, but principle of good relationship, good leadership remains the same.
Yeah.
It has strengthened my belief in thinking long term, acting with clarity, and making decisions accountability. So it was a wonderful experience. I'll say from the day when I joined the introductory session of this institute, and then after multiple sessions, multiple, enough of the good study material, case studies. So it helps me a lot. It reminds you, that leadership is not just about running businesses; it's about guiding them responsibly. What that in this institute is doing.
Yeah. Great, sir. Thank you so much for those kind words. You've taken us far more than a resume of achievements. You've shown us what it means to lead across industries, to build through uncertainty, to create trust where there was doubt, and to keep reinventing yourself without losing your grounding. What stands out most is this: great leadership is not about being in one sector for a long time, it's about bringing clarity, courage, discipline, and people building into every environment you enter. And that's what makes your story so relevant, not just to business leaders, but to anyone trying to build something meaningful in a changing world. So, thank you so much for sharing your experience, your honesty, and your perspective with us today.
Thanks, Tanay. Thank you very much.
Most welcome, sir. To our audience, whether you're a founder, corporate leader, entrepreneur, student, or simply someone who wants to understand how real businesses or real business journeys are built, today's conversation leaves us with one clear message. Success is not only about growth, it's about the kind of leader you become while creating it. This has been FaceTime with Leaders, powered by Directors Institute World Council of Directors, and I am your host, Tanay All. Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and most importantly, keep leading with purpose. Thank you so much.